Hello, one and all. Welcome to the Career Doctor live office hours. Good to be back with you again. We're going to be doing this every couple of weeks at the moment. So we kind of try and do regular office hours every Friday at 10 a.m. Try to post this out with a bit of warning so it goes into LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Um, you, if you're logging live, on any of those platforms, YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Um, you can you can ask me a question via the normal comments process. Great to have anyone joining me today. Make sure we're all set up correctly. Okay. So as per usual, we'll do some questions from YouTube, and we'll have a look at some topical things happening. But we might today just have a quick round the annual medical recruitment process in Australia and try and unpack that and explain that to you guys. And I think that's probably helpful whether you're a currently enrolled, employed intern or resident in Australia, or even an international medical graduate trying to figure out what's the best option for working here. Hopefully, we'll learn something from that. But we'll start with some questions. So I'll just click over to that. Get the chat happening as well. See, we've got a couple of people joining me. How are you going today? So YouTube questions. Let's start at the bottom. Thank you so much. That's an easy reply, obviously. So question a couple of weeks ago from Chitan. I am working as a second year trainee in the UK. I was planning to move to Australia. I watched your videos. They were very helpful. However, have some questions. I'm going to read more, but one of my rules here, if it's a big, long, complex question, I may only just answer one of them. Okay. How difficult is it to enter psychiatry training in Australia? And will my experience be counted? So it's a good question. Hi, Chetan. Thanks for your questions. So the thing about psychiatry training is typically, historically, it has not been a huge barrier to get into, and this is where I should um, uh, declare my current conflict of interest in that I am currently working part-time for my college, the College of Psychiatrists, in the education department. But everything I'll say here is publicly available knowledge, basically. Typically, there have been generally vacancies in psychiatry training in most parts of Australia and New Zealand. For some time now, Western Australia has been a little bit hard to crack into. Uh, and the main barriers to getting into training have started to be around just the number of, unsurprisingly, the number of trainings available. Um, and that's not something that the college controls. That's something that the health services largely control because they're the main employers of psychiatry trainees. So the state governments. There are some additional funding for non-traditional places federal government supplies, which the college is in charge of. So they do have a small role there, but largely it's up to the state governments. So what's actually been happening for the last few years post COVID is the popularity of psychiatry has been going up. And the last year, coming into this year, the number of applications in most states and territories, at least in Australia, has been above the number of positions available. Now, I, I actually don't know, but I can't comment on whether that's the ones that were turned down were ineligible or just unlucky in that there were better candidates. But it has become a bit more difficult. So one, getting into psychiatry training has become more competitive. It's not um, a simple matter of just being eligible anymore. Two, yes, UK experience will help for you to gain entry into training, and there are ways of applying for recognition of prior learning. Um, for RNZCP training, you need general registration first. So Chetan would be coming here under competent authority. So you'd be working here for 12 months in some sort of unaccredited post, basically. During that time, you can actually get your RPL application put together. In some cases, you can actually try and set up that 12-month competent authority term as a quasi psychiatry term, and you may be able to get some credit for that as well. You want to go and, I mean, the person to speak to will be your local, what's called director of training for psychiatry, and read through the college's uh, policy on recognition of prior learning. Cool. Sorry. So good question. All right. And if you've got a question you're watching live, feel free to ask me. Checking on LinkedIn there. All right. So we go up to the top. Okay, question on salaries, GP salaries. Look, I'm not an expert on GP salaries. That guide I wrote is based, well, that video I published is based around the ATO, Australian Tax Office average earnings reports from a couple of years back, which show that I think on average the GPs earn well over 200,000. In fact, we can actually go check out that. Uh, this was, I did need to update this. I will do another post on this at some point. So go to the end of this. The general medical practitioners, what are we looking for? Average total income. Average total income of about 4 years, no, more like 5 years, 7 years ago now. And in median total income for GPs, which is this group here, somewhere 180, 150, but that will be very much skewed by the number of GPs who are working on a part-time basis. So, these figures will probably have got up to 200 by now, at least. So question, yes, these sorts of salaries, uh, so that, to get up to those rates or more, Lost my video there. Um, let's just add it in there again. What am I after? Okay. So basically, working full time or a little bit more than full time will boost your income, as will working rurally, particularly if you have what sort of visiting medical officer appointment at a local hospital. Um, uh, there are no um, bonuses for years of experience. Um, Once you're GP, you're largely being paid through the Medicare benefit schedule with perhaps gap payments depending on how you run your practice and how your practice that you work for runs things. And so, yes, it's definitely possible to earn in that area. You will be working fairly hard, but it's achievable. Um, but clearly, the salary of a GP does sit underneath most of the other specialist salaries in Australia. Um, Question from the flashy one: which is better, standard pathway versus specialist pathway? Um, Look, I mean, it's not the right question, basically. Um, um, the answer depends on your circumstances. Many IMGs only have the option of standard pathway. So, just a reminder, standard pathway for those graduated in any other sort of country, basically, who do not have specialist qualifications. It's kind of the default pathway. Largely speaking, most people would say that if you've got an option in any of the other now four pathways, so there's five in total, take it. Um, um, uh, so, assuming this question is for an SIMG, then statistically, it's easier to achieve comparability with the RANZCR. However, both RACP and RANZCR, college radiologists, have bottlenecks in terms of securing a position. Yeah, it's nuanced. It's not a quick answer to some of these things. I think you're fishing around the flashy one, but if you at the moment, but I mean, your question implies that you've not specialised yet because you're considering different options. Um, but if you're wanting more clarification on a personal situation, I do have strategy calls. Wondering whether we should knock off all these questions and then we'll do the other thing I was going to get to today. And again, if you've got a question you're watching live, feel free to pop it in the comments below. Uh, um, Question from a general surgeon wanting to apply for surgery in Australia. I would say that your prospects have probably improved significantly due to the recent um, admission from RACs that they have been assessing MGs according to the wrong standard. You're not sure what I'm talking about there. Let's see if we can find it. Next, the Yeah. So here's the news from the medical board website. Um, so apparently, since between 2021 and 2024, when the medical board had switched over to a new standard, which is essentially um, requires specialist medical colleges to assess international specialists at the level of a new fellow in Australia and to also consider their proposed scope of practice. So if they want to limit their scope of practice, they have to take that into account. Um, they identified 215 SIMGs who may have been affected in that period and are offering them a free reassessment. Um, statistically, RAC's percentage rate of comparability over the last 9 years is around 58%, which is the lowest of all colleges. So my general advice is it's really hard to get assessed by the College of Surgeons. Um, and even then, if you do get assessed as comparable, sometimes it's hard to get a job. But general surgery, I would suspect, well, I think I know it's a bit, there are opportunities there if you can get through the process. Um, so, yeah, prospects have improved basically. Um, I should put that link in there, shouldn't I? Just edit that. Um, I'm not going to reply to that. Hi, Anthony. Great video. I'm a doctor who's done MBBS, MD in physical medicine and rehab from India. So you would apply to RACP for specialist pathway assessment. They cover rehab medicine in Australia. It's a good tip, actually. If you can't find the right college for you, it's probably the college physicians that have the most programs. Although there are some, there are some specialties in other countries that really don't translate very well here. Um, Again, a question about surgery, general surgery, which is better? Is it apply as a general surgeon, then later continue subspecialty, or to apply to continue as a trainer and trainee? I guess you mean here. Um, at work? No, never quite be able to figure out how to put the ats here. Um, um, your question is, well, uh, I think that best answers your question there. So, general surgery here is a specialty in its own right of surgery. It used to be way back when I was graduating from medical school in the late 90s, early 2000s, that you would do general surgery, start on general surgery first, and then move over. You could then move over to advanced training, something else, but that's not the way it works anymore. You apply for general surgery and you specialize in that over about 5 or 6 years. So it really doesn't lead into sort of advanced training or subspecialty training. So here in Australia, you just choose the specialty of surgery you want to do and you apply for it. Just refresh again. So I've got three more. What steps can I take to increase my chances of securing an internship at hospitals in Perth? Um, um, Look, there's really no ways of improving your prospects. Um, um, well, um, you will be in a lower category. So most of these posts will already be taken up by WA grads. Um, there's no real way of optimizing your CV. The WA Health Services do their own selection processes, so polishing up your interview skills may be helpful. And I have done a post on internship, and there's a short video coming out on it as well. So here's our intern guide for 2026. With currently we have Western Australia sitting on 401 positions. It's probably worth me checking and updating these figures, so I might do that later on today, because the actual jobs are out and the application period is now out. It's started on the 6th of May and closes early next month. See if this works. Okay, that did not do what I wanted it to do. So question about what is acceptable experience. If you go to the medical board website, and you should always go and check what they say directly. This question is about recent practice. Board says that you have to have had recent practice in your scope of practice. Um, so generally, teaching is not considered clinical practice, and won't help if your scope of practice is clinical. Um, so it won't help because your scope of practice is about your clinical practice. Last question from JN3141. I've completed my MBBS degree from India. I was thinking of doing specialty in Australia. Considering that I passed AMC exams, can I apply and get into psychiatry specialty without having to do 1 year internship in Australia? And how many years to complete psychiatry training in Australia? No, you must do 12 months experience first via the standard pathway, psychiatry training minimum of 5 years. I think that's all done and dusted. Let's check. Yep, all caught up, which is great. Cool. Again, if you're watching online, you do have a question or a comment, please feel free to put it in the chat. So for the remainder of today, what I thought we might do is switch over to talking a little bit about how doctors in Australia and to some extent international medical graduates um, apply for jobs for the following year. So we're not talking about internship anymore. I've done plenty of videos in internship. I've done um, uh, yeah, I've done plenty of videos on internship. Gonna test my mic. Yep. And I've got plenty of blog posts about the internship system. Just a reminder, I don't know how many times I have to say this. For 99.9% of all international medical graduates, you neither need an internship in Australia or won't be eligible and won't get one anyway. So just ignore the idea and the information on the medical board website that you might need an internship. Most of you already completed the equivalency in your own country in any case. If you haven't, you're still going to struggle to get one here, and you should do it. Do what you need to do in your own country. You'll be, if you're looking for the sort of the minimum to get into Australia, you'll be looking for what's called a resident medical officer job via the standard pathway or the AMC exams, and then there are obviously other options depending on how much other experience and training and qualifications you have. So some of this information is also relevant to IMGs looking for those sort of RMO jobs, etc. And so what I've pulled up here is the New South Wales Health Junior Medical Officer recruitment page, which has a link to both how to apply for current jobs as well as what they call the campaign. So there is no national match in Australia. There's no nationally coordinated process for allocating resident medical officer and specialty training jobs. However, there is an annual process that occurs. And the reason there's no national match is that Australia is a federalist system. So if we pull up a map of Australia here, each state, we've got 6 states: Western Australia, South Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, and Tasmania. And the 2 territories, Australian Capital Territory and Northern Territory, form the Commonwealth of Australia. Technically, there's another territory called the Jervis Bay Territory. They form the territory, they form the Commonwealth of Australia, which is the government, which forms the government of Australia. So in our recent elections, Anthony Albanese became the Prime Minister of Australia, which he looks after the federal government. Okay, but each state and territory, under our constitution, is responsible for running their own public health system, which includes all state hospitals. Again, there's a couple of exceptions. So the states have always run their own processes. There have been attempts over time to get some coordination, and we at one point had like a national change of date every year, which made a bit of sense, but that's fallen apart. There is a national coordination of intern dates, but then it stops after that. So there's no one overarching entity that's running all the recruitment around the country. We have the states and territories doing bits of it. We also have the colleges doing their kind of selection bits. And then we have general practice training, completely independent of that. That is funded through the Commonwealth Government. So that is nationally coordinated. I won't do a video on that today. So we have, so each state, the point is each state and territory calls it something different. They do it on an annual basis. The dates are not coordinated. So I can't really say to you, in the month of June, you should be getting your CVs ready for all your applications around the country. It just doesn't work that way. What tends to happen is the smaller states try and go a bit earlier to maximize their opportunities to fill up their jobs, and then the larger states tend to go a little bit towards the end. New South Wales Health being usually the last, and there's not really any kind of cut-off finishing day, because if they don't fill all the spots, they sort of roll over to other options like opening them to IMGs. Some states will allow IMGs to apply in the first round. Others will, we may see this, will not allow that, and you'll just have to wait till later in the year. So, where do you go for all these things? So, if you put in something like annual medical recruitment or RMO campaign, New South Wales, Queensland, into Google, etc., you'll normally come to the right landing page. For New South Wales, we want to go to this spot and then the campaign dates, and you'll see some information about the campaign dates for next year, the 2026 clinical year. And you can see here that this tells you when the advertisement starts. It used to tell you when the interviews were. Interesting that they don't. Might just try and filter this. Can we filter this? No, that's that one. Okay. All right. We can't put that in actual chronological order, which is annoying. But you can see here that there are a large number of jobs that are advertised in New South Wales Health for the various health networks or health districts. Goes on and on and on and on and on. There was a report done into this system which showed that there were tens of thousands of applications and several thousand applicants every year. You can see currently posted there are 283 jobs. Now, a lot of those jobs will have multiple spots. Largely, it looks like advertising will be starting on the 15th of July. And then there's some exceptions like June for pediatrics. I saw one for May up the top here somewhere. There was a June there one. And then email offers. This used to tell you when the interview day was. The interview date is normally sometime after the advertising end date. So that's where you find all the jobs. Now, obviously, we can't apply for any of these at the moment because none of them have been advertised. There is some information here about how to apply. So we won't be able to dig in and see what the eligibility criteria are. But generally speaking, if it's based on previous years, the way the New South Wales Health one works is that I think all of them, but I may be wrong, but in most cases, all the jobs advertised here, you will need general registration. So as an IMG, if you haven't already obtained that, you will not be able to apply. There's one that's opening in June. I saw was one in May, but I cannot find it. There is clinical genetics Friday, 23rd of May. Well, it's not that yet either. Okay, so we can't really look at them. This is the link to how to apply. Here's the early round. Okay, so there is an early round now open. So we go to this link will take us to other vacancies. If I put in pain medicine, I don't know if we'll find the early round for that one. No, I think we've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole here. Go for if we can find this one for pain medicine. Tell me that was open. It doesn't tell me. It doesn't allow me to apply for it. I don't know whether they maybe this is like it's the same system if you're applying for ad hoc jobs versus annual medical recruitment jobs. Saying it's open. Maybe no, it's intensive care. All right. Well, I'm struggling to find it, but this is, I think, where you would look once those jobs are open. So it is a fairly complex system to navigate. Moving on to Victoria. Victoria is interesting because there is a Victorian Health Service entity, but all the various Victorian health services are kind of a bit more autonomous. And so they tend to run their own things. They often have to go to their website directly to apply for jobs, whereas in New South Wales, it's one portal for all the hospitals. Same for pretty much every other state in Australia, territory. However, this is the entity called the Postgraduate Medical Council Victoria, which looks after pre-vocational training in Victoria, looks after the intern match, and it actually does do matches for other things. So we can see here that he does a postgraduate year 2 match, first year psychiatry training match, college of physicians matches, etc., etc. So let's go and look at the psychiatry match, for example. So that is open at the moment, okay? So this is where you would go to apply for these sorts of things. So this is quite early, all right? And so you have to log into the application system and create or create an account if you haven't got one already. So see here, if anything's a training post, if you're not got general registration as an IMG, you won't be eligible for it. So let's have a look at the PGY2 match instead, because that might that's a bit later in the year, but this might give us some information. Okay, so that's only again only eligible to those who have general registration in Australia and New Zealand, so not open to IMG doctors. It's actually being very explicit there, which is helpful. Now, I noticed on their website they did have something about international medical graduates. So this is about the the internship system. Yeah, so I think again with Victoria, you have to kind of find ad hoc jobs off the actual individual hospital websites. If anyone's actually managed to get a position through the PMCV match, please put a comment below. So that moves us on to Queensland. So they call theirs the Resident Medical Officer and Registrar campaign. Registrar is a specialty trainee. As I've said in a number of videos, Australia has kind of a four-layered medical training system. You've got medical school, you've got this pre-vocational period like in the UK where you do your internship and usually in at least one year as a resident prior to being able to enter into specialty training. So that's the pre-vocational is your second period, specialty training is the third period. Those jobs are normally called registrar. Once you qualify, you become a specialist, and so that's your final period of medical training or continuing professional development period. So here again, there are dates here. There's how to apply. Zoom in on that. So here are our dates. So some have opened already. It looks like these are kind of maybe priority areas, perhaps, and these have closed. So, if you're interested in mental health and basic physician training as a PHO, you've already missed the boat there. And then we've got a bunch of other things here. Here's how to apply. And this will depend on the application you're applying for. Hoping it might say something about IMGs here. Doesn't seem to. Here we can go and actually apply for posts. Let's see what's. This is linking through to a portal. Or I think again, okay, we're outside of the sort of application period. I think in Queensland you can apply for some positions as an IMG. We'd need to be able to see some of those. So Western Australia, again, this is where there's maybe the sort of the level, we start to see the level of organisation slip down a little bit. Interestingly, they point you back towards the PMCV for intern recruitment, and then say that other positions are advertised on a external site. Interestingly, you apply for your internship not through the PMC of WA, but actually through that same external site. So here's the Med Careers WA site, which has got the WA intern position listed already. And we might sort of interrogate that later on to see if we can work out how many jobs are being advertised. But interestingly, if we look under careers, we can see the other things that are going to be advertised. We can have a look at registrars, for example. And they've got the campaign dates for registrars. So some of these do open in May. Okay. The job search, here we can see the current jobs that are open. This is useful. Let's look at the emergency medicine pool. Actually, that seems to be. Oh, so the RMO one's open on the 26th of May. Um, the service registrar is open on 9th of June. This is kind of all the other medical jobs. Um, I don't know if these are for this year or next year. This is the 2026 pool, so that will be for next year, obviously. This is for Western Australian Country Health. And you get a higher salary if you work for Western Australia Country Health. Um, you need to submit AMC certificate and exam result if applicable. So you have got your AMC certificate, it would imply that you are eligible to apply for some of these. Here's the job description. Eligible for registration. So that means that an international medical graduate could apply. If it says has medical registration, that means you can't. So that's the first one we've found where IMGs looks like they can apply for some of the jobs in the WA annual medical recruitment round. Interestingly, I found this workplace-based assessment link here under international practitioners. And so it looks like WA has invested in a project where they're offering a 12-month WBA program specifically for IMG doctors who've obviously passed the AMC Part 1. And where the positions are, go to MedCareers WBA, eligibility, and the cost. You're required to pay a fee. It doesn't say what that is. Did find the here it is. So here's where you apply for that Hill Health Campus in Perth. South Australia. So SAMET has a little. It does the internship in South Australia. It has a little bit to do with PGY2 as well, but they do direct you there over to the careers website. And so you just need to then find the relevant jobs. And some of these websites could do a little bit better in terms of directing to the actual application portal. I think we just go to SA Health Careers website. What I wanted. And look, they've feed it in for just medical, which is useful. So you can see all the jobs available here at the moment. So most of these will require you to have general registration. Just seeing if there's one that's we will search resident. I think the dermatology one. Okay, this one might be worth looking at. There's an emergency RMO role description. often they are open to international medical graduates. Um, yeah, registrable. So again, as an IMG, you could apply for that. So if you go to that careers, SA Health Careers website, you'll see some of the jobs for next year appearing there that you are able to apply for. This service RMO one, although that's 25, that's mixed in with some of the current ones as well. Tasmania, my old home state. This is the medical careers webpage. Um, there is then a link to, I think it's doctors in training or whatever, takes you through to the statewide resident medical officers applications. They're not open till May. So I think I might come back at sort of the end of the month or early June and we can have a look at some of these again. There is a link here to the RMO recruitment campaign, which is something else. And then we've got ACT Health. This is their landing page for interns, RMOs, and registrars. And here are their recruitment dates. So don't think they're recruiting to any of their posts at the moment. They're a bit later in the year. Oh, there's one for neonatal fellow. And then finally, the Northern Territory. They tend to have a rolling recruitment process. So if you're an international medical graduate, here's a dedicated page for you there. So there you go. There's the kind of a snapshot of all the places you should go and have a look at if you're either a current doctor or trainee doctor in Australia and thinking about applying for a job for next year, or indeed an international medical graduate wanting to look at those sort of opportunities for 2026. And I have got a question from Dania. Sorry, Dania, didn't notice your question there. Been a while. So let's bring that up. Chat overlay. What are some jobs an IMG can do while studying for the AMC and the OET exam? I guess the easiest way of answering this is to say you're not able to work as a doctor here. Actually, wait, I should reply to that, shouldn't I? You are not able to work as a doctor here before you have these exams. You could be still working as a doctor in your own country. The other types of jobs that are useful to do here are other jobs in the medical field, in the health field, really. But really, any sort of employment in Australia is worth doing to show that someone is prepared to give you a go, and can be useful in your application. People think, oh, if I put down I worked in a restaurant, they're going to see that as a minus. No, they won't. You have to do customer service and all sorts of things in those sort of jobs. So, but typically I see people working as phlebotomists, or they might help as an administrator in a GP clinic, or they might get some other qualifications and be able to work as a nurse or something like that. Yeah, so any other sort of related work is good. Thanks for the question. Now that's like all the questions from today. So thanks again for joining me. I should be back online sometime next week. Have a good rest of the day.